Hi, my name's Stephen. I'm a cancer patient, and this is my beautiful wife, Gigi, and we've been on this journey since 2006.
I'm Dr Katrin Sjoquist. I'm a medical oncologist, and I've been Steve's medical oncologist, working with him on this journey for about the last year. How was this problem actually found?
Yeah, it was in 2006. I was rushed to hospital in an ambulance in severe pain, and they discovered that I had gallstones.
Right.
So we made arrangements to have the surgery, and the doctor went in with the camera, keyhole surgery, and you wouldn't believe it, but that particular surgeon actually studied cancer as a hobby.
Right, as a hobby.
And she went in and she looked and she thought, that looks like cancer. And right next door was a cancer specialist in surgery, so she thought, I'll wait until he finishes his surgery, I'll get him to come in and have a look before she does anything. And he said that was the smartest thing that she did, because when he had a look, he said, yeah, I believe it is as well. Just take the camera out, stitch him up, and we'll go and send him some tests to confirm what we think it is. And when I woke up thinking that the gallstones would be gone, a scary question was asked. They said, Steve, we would like you to go get your wife and bring her in. We have something to talk to you about. And that really started the journey.
So at the time when they found the cancer and you had those tests, as I understand it, they discovered that it had started in your small bowel.
Correct.
But it had already gone other places.
Yes.
So what sort of treatment did they do where it had gone?
I went for surgery. They cut my liver in half. They took the big mass out, and then they did some radiotherapy while the liver was open and they could get to it. And they also did the gallstones at the same time. So they said to me before I went into surgery, we won't be able to get everything because we can't see everything by natural eye, but we'll have some treatment afterwards as well. And then they started putting me on a program where I actually use Lantride to control the symptoms, but also it slows down the cancer in its growth.
So when they actually looked at all the test results and the pathology, what did they conclude the type of cancer actually was?
The best way to describe it for me was, he said it's a very rare cancer to start off with, and he said it was about under NET's control, which didn't mean much to me. It was in the liver. That's all I needed to know at the early part of the journey. But as that journey developed, it was helpful to understand it a bit better and know what was coming up in the journey ahead.
Sure. So had you ever heard of neuroendocrine tumours before that?
No.
No. I think that's often the case.
Yes.
I mean, they are much less common than other types of bowel cancers, but they're certainly more common.
The first specialist referred me to a second specialist at Westmead Hospital, and he was my long-term carer, surgeon and specialist for 9 years. And he said at that time, this was the best procedure that he knew of. And they said to me, you know, we would like you to try this particular drug because it will help some of the symptoms that you are starting to get, and they will increase, which was the flushing and the loose bowels. So I said, you know, I trust your opinion and let's go ahead with that. And they were correct, especially the flushing. It really, really helped a lot.
So even though you didn't have any problems when they first diagnosed you, the cancer being present and starting to make some hormones gave you some problems which are not uncommon for this type of cancer, unfortunately. How did that affect your life? What were you feeling?
Well, it was challenging in a couple of regards. Just practicality-wise was when we went out somewhere, I had to know where the bathrooms were. Even though you could control it to a certain degree, you needed to know where the bathroom was so you could get there quickly if you had to.
Right.
So me and my wife got used to looking as soon as we walked into a major shopping centre. Okay, there it is. We know where it is. Next level, if we went up, we'd find it before we go anywhere else. So that was a bit of a challenge. I started off on the least strength, and gradually over the years, as the symptoms started to come back each time, and we had the blood tests and we had all the other scans, and then we could see it was actually increasing in size again. Obviously the dosage or the strength of the drug had to be upped each time. So I knew to a certain degree, but it was more confirmed obviously by the medication, the doctors and the scans and tests.
So you could feel a change?
Yes, yeah.
And that was reflected in the imaging and the
That's
pictures
correct,
and
yeah.
the changing of the medication?
That's right. So it got to the point where they couldn't give me any more in strength, and the cancer had come basically 7/8 of my liver at the time, and the surgeon said to me, a specialist said to me, Steve, we need to try something else. We're at the end of this particular stage of your journey, and so he recommended going on to a clinical trial, and that's where we first met, was because he recommended this particular trial.
Yep,
Yeah.
and I think that was a really good recommendation.
Yeah.
And so your oncologist, when it sort of started not working so much, sort of suggested that we might try something a bit different.
Yes.
How did you react to that? You've been with, having successful treatment and feeling comfortable with that for some years. What was running through your head when they said, "Oh, we want to send you somewhere else"? And
yeah, well, it was a gradual process because I knew it was getting taken more over my liver, and we knew we would be heading to, because he hinted, he said, in the coming years there are new treatments all the time they're discovering, and there's clinical trials, and he said to me, that eventually we might have to go down that route. So it wasn't a complete shock, which was really good. But it was emotional in the sense of thinking to myself, when he started to talk to me about how much my liver was covered in the cancer and needing this clinical trial now, that impacted me and impacted my daughters greatly as well, and of course my wife.
And so when we met, as I said, you'd already heard a little bit about the trial and a little bit about some of the treatments, and part of the reason for coming to our centre was because we have a specialist team that focuses on neuroendocrine tumours and offers some of these newer treatments that couldn't be delivered elsewhere. But what were your thoughts about clinical trials and what that meant, and how did you sort of feel about approaching that?
Well, it was very interesting because I didn't really have any expectations, never been on a clinical trial. But I was a bit shocked with the paperwork and the questions at the beginning to see if I was the right applicant for that particular trial. But once we sat down and we talked about it, and I had questions, and yourself and other people in that team answered those questions, it was very helpful to understand the possible process that we would be going through. And it wasn't something where you walk away and you're just so exhausted with information overload, because you actually give us information to take with us as well, and then you can reread it and think about the process. But it was a challenge in the sense that because of the distance, where we live in Sydney is pretty well extremes.
Lots of traffic.
Lots of traffic. That's right.
Between your place and St George, unfortunately.
Right. But saying that, there's a small price to pay to actually get some treatment that you need, and I'm thankful that we have that opportunity here in Australia, and to have people like yourself and others do marvellous work with clinical trials for people like myself and other people in the future who hopefully through this trial will not only help me but help you guys to discover what's the best route to take for people like me in the future.
You met a lot of people
Yes.
in our team. So if you were, telling other participants about what to expect on the trial, what would be the kind of main things that you said to them about, the experience and the care from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I can honestly say the care was top notch. All the people were very, very, very polite, very helpful. If I have questions, they take the time to answer them. And just coming into the hospital each time, meeting new people as the process started, and them introducing themselves, tell me what they did, and said, do you have any questions at this part of the procedure? And sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. It was very, very helpful. And having one particular person, Lisa, also managing all the scans, the tests that I have to have, and communicating with me by email and reminding me, I found that very helpful, because even though it's good to have someone say, here's a list of the next one's coming up, and then a reminder, just a short reminder, okay, next week, don't forget this particular test you got to go and do.
So Lisa was your trial coordinator, and
yes.
she scheduled a lot of the bookings and things
That's
for
correct,
you.
yeah. So each one obviously had their own certain area of responsibility, but as a whole team, I just really felt comfortable and at ease and looked after.